Imagine that a tree in your garden suddenly turns into a giant creature. That's what this movie is about. So let's jump into today's movie recap. The story starts with a 13-year-old boy named Connor, who is holding his mother's hand tightly at the edge of a cliff because she is about to fall. But within moments, his mother's hand slips and falls. Suddenly, Connor wakes up. It was just a terrifying nightmare. In the morning, he prepares food for himself and his mother, who has cancer. She assures him that the doctors will start chemotherapy again, and she will recover soon. Meanwhile, Connor's grandmother will take care of him, but he does not feel close to her. At school, a boy named Harry keeps staring at Connor and later beats him up after school. That night, when Connor is asleep, at exactly 12:07 a.m., he hears loud noises from outside. When he looks outside, he sees the tree behind his house transforming into a strange creature. Connor tells it to go away, but the tree monster says that Connor has no choice but to listen. The monster says it will return and tell him 3 stories, after which Connor must share his own true story, the truth he fears the most. Suddenly, Connor finds himself back in his room, which is now filled with leaves. Seeing the leaves, he realizes that what he saw was not just a dream. The next morning, Connor's grandmother arrives at the house, but he asks her to leave. He is sure that his mother will recover after the treatment. That night, his grandmother sleeps in his room, so Connor has to sleep in the hall room. At exactly 12:07 a.m., Connor looks out the window and sees the monster standing outside again. The monster begins telling its first story. Many years ago, there was a king whose sons died in a war. His last remaining heir was a young prince whom the people loved a lot. Later, the old king remarried, and the people believed that the new queen wanted to poison the king and take the throne. However, the king soon fell sick and died naturally. The young prince was supposed to become king, but he was in love with a farmer's daughter and ran away with her. One night they slept under a tree, the same tree that later became the monster. When the prince woke up, he found that someone had killed his lover. He ran back to the kingdom and accused the queen of the crime. Enraged, the people attacked the palace and the queen was never seen again. Connor asks, why did the monster save a murderer? The monster then reveals the shocking truth. The queen was innocent. It was the prince himself who killed his lover and blamed the queen so he could take the throne. The prince, who falsely accused the queen, becomes king and rules for many years. Surprisingly, under his rule, the people are happy. Connor is confused about how the prince, despite his past actions, becomes a good king. This time, the monster explains that no one in the world is purely good or bad. Every person has both good and evil inside them. The next day at school, Harry stares at Connor again and later beats him up badly. When Connor returns home, he finds out that his mother's chemotherapy is not working. His father, who lives in America, is also coming to visit them. His mother says that the current treatment is not helping, so she will go to another hospital and recover soon. Since no one can take care of him at home, Connor moves in with his grandmother. However, she does not let him touch anything in her house. A few days later, Connor's father arrives, and they go to a restaurant together. His father lives in America with his another wife and daughter, so Connor misses him a lot. He does not want to stay at his grandmother's house. Instead, he hopes that his father will take him to America so he can escape from her. That night, at exactly 12:07 a.m., the monster appears again. It tells Connor another story. This time, they travel 150 years back when new scientific medicines are being introduced, and people start avoiding traditional herbal medicines. In a village, an old herbalist makes medicines from plants, but people no longer need his bitter remedies. Instead, they mock and avoid him. At that time, there is a church near the tree behind Connor's house. The herbalist decides to cut down the tree to make medicine, but the priest forbids it. The priest wants to free people from old superstitions, so he gives speeches against the herbalist and turns the entire village against him. One day, the priest's 2 daughters become seriously ill, and no doctor can cure them. With no other choice, the priest goes to the herbalist for help. However, the herbalist refuses, saying, "You didn't let me take that tree, which could have helped many people. You turned everyone against me and destroyed my work. I am not kind enough to help you now." Desperate to save his daughters, the priest says the herbalist can take the tree and promises to support him in front of the villagers. He is even ready to abandon his own faith if it means saving his daughters. But the herbalist tells him it is too late. Nothing can be done now. The next morning, the priest's daughters die. That night, the tree turns into the monster again. Connor expects it to punish the herbalist for not helping the priest's daughters, but instead, the monster destroys the priest's house. Connor is shocked. The monster then explains that even though the herbalist is greedy and selfish, he has always helped sick people. On the other hand, the priest, who made people trust him, is willing to abandon his faith for his own daughters, even after leading many people against the herbalist. If the priest had given the tree to the herbalist, many lives could have been saved. But the priest's faith was not true. It was based on fear. In the end, Connor also starts helping the monster destroy the priest's house. But when he returns to reality, he realizes that he has actually destroyed his grandmother's house. This is not a dream. It really happened. When his grandmother comes home, she is in deep shock. She doesn't say a word, then screams and breaks the only thing left unbroken, but she still does not say anything to Connor. Seeing her so heartbroken, Connor regrets everything. The next morning, his father tells him that his grandmother has gone to the hospital to be with his mother. Connor wonders if he will be punished for destroying the house, but his father says that there is no point in punishing him. At school, Harry keeps staring at him again, but he does not hit Connor this time. Connor's condition is worse than before. His mother tells him that now the doctors will use medicine made from the tree in their garden, and hopefully she will recover soon. That night at exactly 12:07 a.m., Connor waits for the monster. He goes to the garden and calls for it. The monster appears. Connor asks, "My mother will get better, right?" But the monster does not answer. It only says that Connor is not yet ready for the third story. After the final story, Connor must tell his own truth, the one he fears the most. Later, Connor has the same nightmare again. His mother's hand slips and she falls into the abyss. Days pass, but the monster does not return. At school, Harry keeps bullying him every day. But one day, at exactly 12:06 p.m., Harry tells him that he will never bother him again. He realizes that deep down, Connor actually wanted someone to notice him, even if it meant being bullied. But now that Harry will stop, Connor feels like he will disappear completely. Then, at exactly 12:07 p.m., the monster finally appears. It tells him the third story. It is about a man who disappears. Nobody notices him, and nobody cares if he is there or not. Tired of feeling invisible, the man calls for a monster so that people will finally see him. Suddenly, something inside Connor awakens, and he attacks Harry, beating him badly. He only stops when Harry is completely injured. Now, Connor is in the principal's office. The principal tells him that Harry is so hurt that he had to be taken to the hospital. While Connor was beating him, Harry kept screaming, "I exist! I am not invisible!" But just like his father, the principal says that punishing Connor won't make any difference. Later, Connor goes to visit his mother, but she is much worse. The new treatment is not working, and there is no hope left. Hearing this, Connor becomes very emotional and returns home. He walks through the graveyard and reaches the tree. Filled with anger, he calls the monster. When the monster appears, Connor yells at it, asking, "Why didn't the tree cure my mother? And if she cannot be saved, then why are you torturing me with these nonsense stories?" The monster replies, "I came because you called me." Connor also starts crying and says, "Yes, I called you to save my mom." But the monster tells him that it did not come to heal his mother. It came to heal him. Then, the monster says it is time for the fourth story, which Connor must tell himself. Suddenly, just like in his nightmare, the church starts sinking into the ground. His mother is standing nearby. Connor screams at her to run, but as the ground sinks, she slips. Connor runs just in time to grab her hand at the edge of the cliff. Slowly, her hand starts slipping, and she tries to hold on. At that moment, the monster tells Connor, "This is the fourth story. This is your truth." Then his mother's hand slips, and she falls into the abyss. A terrified Connor asks, "Where is my mom? She is gone now." The monster replies, "You let go of her hand. Now you must say your truth, or you will be trapped in this story forever." Connor realizes that if he wanted, he could have held on a little longer, but deep inside, he let her go himself. Finally, tired of running from the truth, Connor admits, "I cannot watch my mom die over and over again. I want to be free from this pain. I always knew she could not get better, but I kept lying to myself. Now, my heart just wants this pain to end." After saying this, Connor starts to fear that his mother will actually die because he let go of her hand in his dream. But the monster comforts him, saying, "It is not your fault. You just wanted the pain to stop. That is what every human wants. Like the prince and the herbalist, you also have both good and bad inside you." Finally, Connor falls asleep. Meanwhile, his grandmother finds him and quickly takes him to the hospital. On the way, Connor apologizes for breaking her things. His grandmother tells him that they are very different from each other, but one thing connects them: their deep love for Connor's mother. They hug each other and cry. Later, they reach the hospital, where Connor's mother is taking her final breaths. At exactly 12:07, the monster appears again and tells Connor to speak his truth. Connor hugs his mother tightly and cries, "Mom, please don't leave me." He holds her close, saying his final goodbye. At that moment, his mother looks at the monster and smiles, as if she has known it all along. After her passing, Connor moves in with his grandmother in the house where his mother grew up. He learns that his mother was very young when her own father passed away. While looking through her old books, he discovers that the monster is actually his grandfather. Just like he helped Connor face his pain, the monster once helped his mother deal with her own loss. By this, the movie ends here. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like the video.